Hey cousins, man, it's been a day. When I first decided to make the behind the scenes footage for Patreon, I did not think that it would be all that interesting. To be honest, I thought it would be cool for people who wanted to know about podcasting and research. I'm a big fan of that sort of thing, but I know that when I talk about it, oftentimes people's eyes glaze over and they're just like, they don't care, but they're just being polite. And I, I fully intend to just talk about like how I do my research, who I go to, how I perform my interviews, and maybe some of the equipment we use, like our fancy mic and all that stuff, but it's more Damon's role than mine. But today proved to me that there may be times when these cases are a hell of a lot more than they seem, and that the research might end up being more interesting than the story itself. So if you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen this, but if not, then here's your recap. Or if you have, here's your recap. If not, here you go. As you can see, the behind-the-scenes stuff is going to be a little bit more flexible than the podcast. This is no scripting. I don't have any real notes in front of me other than the research notes that I've taken today. But I promised I would do a vlog because I got to talking about how things were going and people were intrigued, to say the least. So I am currently researching a urban legend that is near me in a town called Jamestown in Tennessee, and it's in Fentress County. And the urban legend centers on the Pine Haven School, the old one, not the new one. The new one is a flashy new school. I'm sure nothing creepy has happened there. But at the old one, it's an abandoned school, which is graffitied and looks like some teenagers might be doing some stuff in it. And so it's the perfect fertile ground for an urban legend. Now, the urban legend around that school is actually one of the more well-known urban legends in Tennessee. If you look up Tennessee hauntings and Tennessee urban legends, of course, you get the Bell Witch, you get Skin Tom, but then you also get the Pine Haven Bully Boy, or Bullied Boy, depending on how you see it written or pronounced. Now, I'll get into the actual urban legend and all that in the podcast that I'm doing, but this is about the research. And today's research, y'all, is interesting, to say the least. So, I started my research, excuse me, online, of course. It's the internet. You know, you're able to hear from me just because of the wonders that is the internet. And I hate to be the person to ask questions that you can easily Google. So I did my Google research, but I could only go back as far as 2011 with this specific urban legend. And I knew from reading all the articles on it that mostly it was just repetition of that 2011 post. And there's a YouTube video and there's snippets here and there, but it was just regurgitating the legend. It wasn't talking about, well, how did it spring up? You know, urban legends don't just form by themselves out of a mind like Athena out of Zeus. You know, it's something happens usually. Now, that something might be a group of kids wanting to haze a younger kid or a smaller kid or whatever. And that's fine if that's what it is, but often it's comes up from something else that's happened that the story gets twisted through the grapevine. So I wanted to figure out what that might have been. So I started researching the school. Well, there ain't a lot on it. And I researched the town, I researched the county, and I can't find some very basic information about the school. So I knew that I was going to have to start doing a little bit more than just Googling. I needed to make some phone calls. Now, I was a little nervous. This is my first time doing or talking to people I didn't already have a relationship about this podcast. And I know that, paranormal and folklore and podcasting and all that stuff is much more of a socially acceptable conversation points among the people my age, but sometimes when you talk to people who are older, it can get awkward really fast. So I was a little nervous about it, but I put my big girl panties on and I decided to start making some phone calls. And I only had 3 questions, just 3. When was the school built? Can't find any information on it. So when was the school built? My bullet journal is where I keep all my information on this stuff. When did it close? So my thoughts were, if I could look at when it was built and when it closed, I'd have a good time frame of when this urban legend's seed might have been planted. And have there been any deaths related to the school at all? Now, one would think that if there had been a child death at the school, especially at the hands of the bully, it would pop up. However, maybe it wasn't at the hands of a bully. Maybe it wasn't murder. Maybe it's just a child had an asthma attack in the bathroom by themselves and died. Or maybe it wasn't a child at all. Maybe it was a janitor or some person went in there after the school was closed and died. I mean, just any death related to the school. I just wanted to know if there was. Maybe that was what spurred this urban legend. So, those were my 3 questions. The thing is, as simple as that sounds, there was nothing simple about my research today. The first problem occurred whenever I was trying to figure out who to call in the first place. I decided on just the Jamestown executive offices because I couldn't find any website for historical society or anything like that. Now, they have links on their town page, Jamestown, Tennessee.gov, or wherever it is, but most of the links don't go anywhere. They're broken. Okay. Maybe they felt like having those web pages up wasn't worth it, domain hosting being what it is. Or maybe they're planning on having it up and they just have those placeholders on their. I mean, either way, it's fine. I understand. So, they might just be working on getting this small rural town caught up 21st century. So, I just decided to call their main office, and I got a lady named Deborah. And Deborah sounded very tired. She was not in the mood to talk to me or anybody, it didn't sound like, which, I don't know what's going on with her day, and I hope that she went on to have a good day, maybe a glass of wine tonight. But she had no idea what I was talking about. She didn't really have any patience to hear what I was talking about, and so finally I was like, do you have a historical society, somebody in your office, in your networking, whatever, that could take a moment to hear my questions and maybe have some answers about this school. And she said they didn't have anything like that, but that would have to that I would have better luck calling the county office. And she also dropped that Jamestown no longer owns the old Pine Haven School, but that she didn't know who did. Oh, okay. So good to know. Thank you. So I decided to call, do what Deborah said, and I called the county office. So she even gave me the number, so I didn't even have to look it up. So I called the county office. Talked to a real nice young lady named Amanda, who also had no idea what I was talking about, and had no idea of how to help me, but she did have a phone number for the Historical Society. Specifically for a particular woman with the Historical Society named Martha Wiley. And Martha Wiley sounded like an older woman. I'm not entirely sure what her age is. But, and I happened to call her right when she was with some members of the Historical Society. Martha Wiley didn't sound too pleased with what I'm researching. I told her who I was, that I'm with this podcast, and that we were researching, or that I was researching an urban legend with the old Pine Haven School. She said, "What urban legend?" She didn't know what I was talking about. And so I told her. First, I told her what questions I was wanting answered about the, when was school built? She had no idea. Oh, and Martha, there's something else, I'm sorry. Amanda said that Martha Wiley would be able to answer my questions because she was on the Historical Society and she's a former superintendent. So I thought, perfect person, but she had no idea when the school was built. Had no idea when it was closed or why it was closed. Deborah over at the Jamestown office did say that it was likely due to need of repairs. And nobody had any idea about debts related to the school. Now, Martha did want to know, and she asked me kind of sternly, what the urban legend was. And I told her very briefly had to do with a death of a student who said now to haunt the school. Well, she just seemed appalled and said that she didn't know anything about any of that, and that she didn't think, she said, and I don't think we can help you. But I asked her to write down my name and number, and just in case anything came up, and we ended the conversation. I don't think I'll be hearing from Martha. So, the Jamestown Executive Office and the Fentress County Executive Office could not help me, and neither could Martha Wiley and the Historical Society. So then I was like, well, who could answer at least a couple of my questions? I looked up the Fentress Courier, and there was another paper, and it's on my computer notes. But anyway, I looked up the two newspapers in the area. And I also looked up the new Pine Haven School and the police department. So my thought was, I'll just glance at the obituaries. See how far back their obituaries even go. They don't have any obituaries on their newspapers, which is very strange considering they have a section on their menu bar that says obituaries. I clicked on it. It's blank. Absolutely blank. There are no obituaries on these papers despite having it on their menu bar. Okay, that's a little weird, but alright. So I called the new Pine Haven School. I actually talked about this with some family members and friends in the meantime, talking about my frustrations, and I was told, don't tell them what you're researching. Just say you're writing about the old school and would like some questions answered. I was like, I'll take it this time, because Martha Wiley was not happy, and I didn't really feel like making anybody else unhappy unless I had to. So I called the new Pine Haven School, and all I asked was, when was it built? I figured if I can get a concept of when the new school was built, I'll at least have that date for a timeline search. Because, due to the nature of the urban legend, it has to be at least by the time indoor plumbing is common in schools and when the new school was built. So I figured that will at least give me some sort of timeline to start researching. Because it's very hard to start researching deaths without a date. So, it give me something, just something at this point. So I called the new Pine Haven School. I asked the lady at the front office, when was your school built? She had no idea. She said, hold on. I got passed around 3 or 4 times, talked to that many people, and they could not answer my question. However, the librarian did take down my name, my number, and said that she would look into when the school was built and when the old Pine Haven School was built for me and get back to me if she could find those dates. I don't have a whole lot of hope, but my fingers are crossed that she will at least get back to me with some dates. I did not tell these people why I was researching it. The last weird thing that happened was I figured I would call the police department. I didn't expect them to know anything about the history, but perhaps they can say if they've heard of the urban legend and if they've had any problems with vandals, with teenagers in the old school, with any of that. Now, the videos and images I've seen of the old Pine Haven School, the school is heavily vandalized. There is spray paint everywhere. There's broken stuff, spray paint. I mean, it's awful. And from what I understand, is that people are going in and out of this place freely. I also wanted to see if I could ask the police department about who do I get permission to go and maybe film at this place. I didn't get to ask anybody those questions. I don't have any answers for you yet. Because their police department's phone number doesn't work. Their police department phone number that is on the website, that is on the town site, that's on Google, that's on all these places that you can call the Jamestown Police Department, doesn't work. There are, according to the internet, 9 people that work there. It's a small town. I live in a small town. I can accept this. But their phone number don't work. And when I try and contact anybody else, they're like, well, those questions are something you should ask their, Jamestown. But they can't answer my questions. Nobody knows. And their police department phone number doesn't work. So, here's where I'm at. I still don't have answers to any of my questions. I am going to keep researching. It's all about the search engine keywords. So I will be continuing to add stuff into Google and trying to come up with something. I did find a document about how Jamestown and Fentress County was settled and where the name Pine Haven comes from. A Ghent farm, I think is what it said, and that it's a coal mining town that sprang up and really prospered, or the county prospered when the railroad came through because you can't get coal out of there without the railroad. Anyway. None of these documents, none of these Google searches, none of this answered my question. So Damon, my husband, partner in Hate and Holler, and the tech guy, is off work on Sunday, and he is going to help me out because he knows a little bit about internet research and about who to talk to about property. If he cannot find answers to my questions, sorry, I got something in my eye. If he can't find answers to my questions, we are planning, we're planning one anyway, but we are planning a trip to Jamestown, Tennessee, so I can take some pictures of the Pine Haven School for you all, and so that I can get a good picture of the area that this urban legend is talking about, because urban legends are, and folklore in general, is colored and shaped by where it forms from. And I like knowing where this comes from to give me an idea of how to tell this story to you all. So we're going to go anyway, but what I do while I'm there will be affected by what we can figure out before I can go. And I will be sharing that blog on here. Another option I have is my sister-in-law is a private investigator. And she's really busy, but if she gets a chance, I might have her look into a couple things for me. Because this is just weird, y'all. This is weird that this is a very popular urban legend. If you look up Pine Haven Ghost or Tennessee hauntings and folklore and urban legends, this story comes up. Like it said, I can't remember what website it was, but actually I think it was a couple websites. Sorry, I forgot. Anyway, a couple websites were talking about how this is one of the most disturbing of the stories that come out of Tennessee, thirded only by like Spearfinger and Skin Tom, which I totally plan on talking about. I did not expect this story to be difficult or even time consuming. I thought it was going to be quick. 1, 2, you get a couple dates in there, go and visit, get a feel for the place, and do the podcast, and there you are. But apparently, this place wants to start sounding like Children's Corner location. They've got people who don't want to answer my questions, who have never heard of an urban legend that's popular about their hometown, including their historical society. I just find that weird. And then, nobody knows when these places were started. I mean, maybe it's just me, but the schools I went to had plaques, like in their main hall or outside their front door, of when it was built. It had a date, usually with a name on it of the person who was like donated the most money for the school to be built or had influence on it or whatever. But anyway, at least has a date of when the ground was broke or when the school was built or opened. It has a date on a plaque in the front. Is that not normal for other schools? Like, this was not just like one school I went to, and I've been to a lot of schools. So I don't know, that just seems strange to me. And then the police, the phone number don't work. And the websites don't work. And Fentress County, every time I try and talk to somebody over there, they act like they got nothing to do with Jamestown, but Jamestown is the seat of Fentress County. I'm about guaranteed that the people I'm calling with Fentress County are in Jamestown. But they act like it's completely different than Fentress County, that they don't have anything to do with it. It's just weird, y'all. And it'd be different if, like, one of these things was occurring. Like, if it was just Martha Wiley not wanting to answer my question, well, maybe she's just not interested in urban legends and doesn't want that kind of interest in her town that's known for war heroes and Mark Twain's daddy. I can kind of get that. You don't want people coming to your town who are weirdos and hunting ghosts and, vandalizing an old school. Well, it's already vandalized. There's already stuff on it. And there's nothing wrong with ghost hunters. But that's besides the point. And I can get, the girl at the front desk who answers the phones, not knowing the answers to my questions, but should at least be able to hand me off to somebody. Nothing excuses the police department's phone not working, especially in a rural town. Like, surely there's a Barney Fife dude sitting at the desk at this point. Like, why don't your phones work? I can get the website's not being up because, but it's just, if it was one thing or even two things, but all of these things are stacking up. It's just weird. And so I told Damus that we're gonna have to go out there. And on one hand, if they didn't want me to meddle in their business, they should have just answered my questions. Because now I'm gonna be out there asking questions, and I can be annoying if I need to be. It's just weird. So I was laughing, I was telling him, I said, watch this place end up being like a Children of the Corn. Like, this sounds like the beginning of a bad horror movie. The researcher, the journalist, whatever, looking into an urban legend and then gets caught up in a damn cult, or something weird, But it's just weird. I don't really know what else to say about it. Maybe it's going to amount to nothing. I might just get the dates on Sunday and go out there, take some pictures, and that'd be it. But there is something to be said about how creepy small towns are. I live in a small town. I can see somebody thinking this place is creepy. I don't really know what else to say on the matter at this time. It's just weird. And I will be following up with a vlog on my visit there, at the very least. Hopefully I will follow up with how the research goes with Damon, if we end up having to get my sister-in-law on the matter, and what that looks like, and so on. If y'all have any questions about how I do my research or have any suggestions, feel free to comment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being patrons for Hate and Holler. It means so much to me. Any interest, shout outs, or even dollars spent just helps with this research. It helps with putting gas in the car to drive an hour down the road to Jamestown. It helps with those stressful mornings of me pouring over a cup of coffee and just trying to figure out what the hell, what am I doing? Why can't I find any information on such and such? What else is coming up? So I'm working on the Pine Haven School Urban Legend. I am also working on a podcast about folklore in fall and weather magic, and signs about the weather, just, that folk magic, folklore, omens, type of thing. And, what was that? Oh, I'm also working on an interview, so that's going to be really cool. I'm interviewing my husband Damon's grandmother about a haunted house that she was there when it became haunted and experienced the haunting herself. She lived on the property that it was on. So that's going to be I'm really excited about that interview. It's also going to be much less stressful than trying to figure out these Pine Haven dates. So again, thank you all for watching. Mwah.